What's up everyone, Trent here, welcome to The Fortress. The DC Universe streaming site has its brand new television show just dropped this weekend in Swamp Thing. Now, Swamp Thing is a kind of obscure character if you're not too familiar with DC Comics lore, particularly the darker, more horrific side of it. We've had some great tales over the years from Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson, who are the original creators in House of Secrets 92, going on through their original series. Then Alan Moore came over and took over the role, absolutely developing Alec, Holland and Swamp Thing through the late 80s with Saga of the Swamp Thing, where we also got Constantine involved. And Scott Snyder had a definitive run in the New 52 comics. Swampy hasn't gotten much love in movies and TV that have been well received. He does have a lot of cameos in kind of Justice League animated series, but this is the first TV show where he's actually starred, and I could not have been more excited. I have watched the very first episode, and I loved every second of it. It had that horror element. There was a lot of mystery, world building happening. There wasn't much of Swamp Thing or really Alec Holland. He was not the focal point, which was really surprising. Now, Abby Arcane, played by Crystal Reed, is the main focus of the episode and quite possibly going to be the main focus of the series. This kind of gives me the impression that they're going to be going with like a Greg Rucka Punisher, where the main character, the title character, is going to be more hidden off to the side and be more about what the character represents than the actual focus of the episode. And it's going to be looking at those supporting characters from the comic that are going to be taking the main lead. So she comes to the town. She's a CDC investigator who is a doctor investigating a plague that is sweeping through the town, presumably from the swamps in the bayou. It is here that she meets Andy Bean's Alec Holland, who is a scientist, a botanist, who is doing research on the swamps to find out what is making people sick. As we progress through the episode, we learn that mutagen's been dropped into the swamp and that's having effects, but to what extent we don't know, and that's where the mystery comes into this. Now, I really enjoy the dynamic between Abby and Alec. There's a lot of friendly banter and there's a lot of quips and a lot of back and forth. I enjoy that. It doesn't undercut the tone of the series so far. It actually plays into a lot of developments that occur later in the episode. There's initially a lack of trust between Alec and Abby, and we get that kind of dynamic where they start to grow fond of each other and then open up and we learn their motivations. So we learn deep things about Alec Holland and why he's in Louisiana, and we also learn about Abby and why she moved away from the small town in Louisiana and what's brought her back, and the relationship between other supporting characters, in particular Maria Sunderland. So that is going to be a great focal point of what goes on. We haven't really been introduced to the major villain yet, which is good. It's only episode 1 of the 10 episode series, but the mysteries are there. Now let me just talk about the actual tone of the episode. There's a lot of blacks, a lot of darkness going on. It is hard to see sometimes, which does kind of get a little bit irritating. However, there are some really beautiful scenes, particularly when they are traveling through the swamp at night. There's some really washed out tones that are cutting through the trees, some light that's cutting through that gives this really creepy element to it. We get to see the swamp alive with some great CG that actually it doesn't look half bad. I'm actually quite impressed by the CG in this, of the roots and the trees and the swamp kind of overgrowing, and there's a lot of violence in this, which is also excellent. It is not over the top at all. It's gory. I was surprised at how gory it was. Like a tree trunk actually burst through a guy's chest cavity and it just explodes out and he's still stuck in... Yeah, it's fantastic. I loved it. But we get to learn a lot of the things going on and we get introduced to a lot of the mysteries. So there's a particular scene where a decaying and deceased body that has been overrun by this disease that actually is sprouting the roots from the mouth, Clay, the guy's name was, is in the morgue and he springs back to life because of the mutagen that is affecting the swamp, or we can presume, or is there something else going on? Fluronic man, anyone? But yeah, we see this corpse come back to life and just completely grow. His rib cage gets completely split and organs are going everywhere. It like slides off and there's roots coming out and he becomes like this ridiculously, swamp creature. I'm not going to say swamp thing because that's not swamp thing, but he becomes this mutated creature of roots and such, and it's just fantastic to look at, and I liked it. It is quite, I'm not going to say it's quite scary. It has some jump scary moments, but they aren't overused and they suit the tone of the TV show quite well. I really enjoyed this episode. We get introduced to the majority of the supporting cast, and we even get some visuals of Madame Xanadu, which is excellent. As you can tell, I'm into it. 9 episodes to go. Bring it on. We get at the very end a hint of Derek Mears as Swamp Thing. I am quite disappointed in that element. I was liking Andy Bean as Alec Holland, so I'm hoping he kind of comes back in some flashbacks or in some way there's something that shows his history and elements, because I actually quite liked him and I liked the dynamic between him and Crystal's Abby Arcane. So I enjoyed that, but as far as the suit on Swamp Thing goes, from what we've seen, he is used very, very minimalistic in this at the very end of the episode. It looks excellent, and I cannot wait to see more. I want the mystery to unravel. I like the pacing of the episode. I had a lot of fun, and I can't wait for more. But that's it. Let me know your thoughts on Swamp Thing Episode 1 in the comments below. Did you enjoy it? Are you excited to see more of Swamp Thing and experience the saga of the Swamp Thing? Tell me. Anyway, follow our handles at Fortress Nerds on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm Trent, and you're watching The Fortress.